give up. If I do something, man, I do it till I get what I want. I turn a business out of nothing into something I love. I got a poker face, but honestly, I'm not one to bluff. I flip a switch, never miss, man, I always stay up. Don't let them see you, bitch, always have a plan to stay tough. This life ahead of you ain't easy, it was built to be rough. But that's what makes a personality, is tragedy, bruh. So keep your head on your shoulders. Now we ain't out here moving rocks, we out here moving boulders. Now we ain't getting posterized, we out here making posters. And we ain't got nothing to hide, we move forward like soldiers. You better wake up for the pay stub, or you'll pay up. Don't make love to the game, bruh, fuck the game up. Change up, rearrange stuff to your greatness. Famous for the way up, play the game, bruh.
Never stop, I'll get it if I want it. Gotta make to myself a promise. I won't quit, keep going till I got it. I won't give up till I'm on top, yeah.
You know I'm always honest, there ain't no way I'm ever stopping.
I won't quit, keep going till I got it. I won't give up till I'm on top,
I'm always flirting with pain, she like to hurt me and maim. I'm always working to change, but she's still lurking the same. I keep on building a dynasty while the haters be trying me. But they hate from inside, you see, hate themselves in society. So I let them speak quietly while my actions speak wider. See, they be hiding in privacy with the screen, oh the irony. To hate someone who's trying to be whatever they would like to be. We all feel the anxiety, we make our own rivalries. Yo, so where is all the positivity? I feel like we all just hate on everything, it's killing me. Thoughts build quick, causing different possibilities. Negative thoughts will cause different disabilities. So do.
Hey everyone, welcome back to A Second Chance. My name is Philip Jones, one half of your host, kidney transplant recipient.
And hi, I'm Tafaro Cook, two-time kidney transplant recipient and survivor of over a decade of dialysis. I am the founder of Kidney Care Coaches, where we coach people with stage 3 to stage 5 kidney disease. If you or you know someone who needs coaching with their kidney disease, hit us up at kidneycarecoaches.com.
And hi, my name is Jose Amezola. I am a living kidney donor on August 20th, 2013. This is something that I become really passionate about. So any chance that I get to talk about living kidney donation and what that process is like in my experience, which was overall very positive, I'm more than happy to.
Awesome. Let's go and take the first question.
Yeah, I will take the first question. So Jose, I was reading your I want to say first I was like resume, but it seems like a curriculum vitae, if you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, this man has done some great work, man. It's pretty awesome.
Oh,
But what
thank you.
inspired you? Yeah, man, no doubt. But what inspired you to take this journey? Because I've been in this game since I was 18 years old, and I'm quite older now than that, and I can't even get sometimes people to understand to be a kidney donor when they're deceased.
Right.
So how'd you take on this role? That's where I want to go.
For me, it was kind of a bucket list item. I had seen a story on YouTube, and I don't even remember much. I just knew that it was like a news story about a person who donated to a stranger. And that was kind of like, oh, I think I could do something like that. And I started looking into it, and it became like a goal of mine to be able to do something. And then not only do that, but go on and to live the best life that I could after that, to show people that, like, you can continue to live an awesome life after kidney donation. And for me, really, there has been no difference. If my kidney had disappeared overnight, I would have never known that I've only been living with one kidney. So yeah, it's what I did,
awesome.
and yeah.
Go ahead, Phil.
So I was looking at it, and it shows that at that time you were actually at the University of Colorado. Did you continue to go to school? Did you take a break? How did you proceed with school from that point?
Yeah, so that semester, that time, it was August 2013. I was not taking any classes. So, but I was in a situation where I was going to school part-time anyways. And so it wasn't that I didn't take classes because of the kidney donation. I was in and out of school, not in and out, but like taking classes when I could, because I was working full-time. So it just lined up very well. And if I would have had to take time off, I would have done it anyways, because to me that was a small sacrifice for the benefit that the recipient would have gotten. So that was not an issue for me, and my employer was very accommodating as well. I was only out
That's
of work for like 2 to 3 weeks. It was not much because I do office work, so I was able to go back to that pretty fast.
let me ask you a question. Like, so, how was the process? And this is what I want people to hear. Sometimes even with my second transplant, we had a living donor in our kidney swap. So,
Sure.
can you take us through the process of what you had to do to become a donor, a living donor?
Absolutely. So at the time, I didn't really know anything about donation, right? I think that if I would have gone back and do it over again, I would do differently, knowing what I know now. And what I mean by that is that you could just call a transplant center and they will sort of start that process. I found somebody who needed a kidney, and I have no regrets. I'm glad that I did because we become really good friends, and it ended up working out really well. And she's great, and she's been a really great blessing in my life. But what I did is that I found somebody who needed a kidney on social media, and then I approached her, saying that I wanted to test for her. So I got in contact with her transplant center, and um, it's a whole process where you typically talk to what's called a transplant coordinator, who works with just living kidney donors. So their job is to have your best interest in mind. They don't work with the recipient side of things, and um, so it's you have somebody who's looking out for your best interest. And so the initial test is, I think it's like they do your blood type, a 24-hour urine test, just to make sure that you meet those preliminary requirements. If everything looks good, I know that every transplant center does it differently, but then you have to do a psychological evaluation, EKG, um, some other medical tests that I don't remember the name of them, but there's a lot of blood with draws. You do like an I don't know if it's the MRI or the MRA of your whole body, um, and at any time when you're going through the process, they always reiterate that you can withdraw at any time. It's up to you. You can withdraw even up to right before you go under, right? And so I felt very comfortable with that process because I knew that they had my best interest in mind, but I was also read a lot about it, and I was very confident in my decision, anyways. Um, and yeah, and I met with everybody that I needed to, and I had a good experience overall. Um, but it depends on the coordinator and the transplant center. So
Yeah, I clearly understand what you're saying with that, man. So this is just my follow-up question. Did you have to go through anything? Because sometimes, like my donor had to get her blood pressure down a little bit. Sometimes people
I
have to lose a little bit of weight. So was there any little tidbit that you had to do?
no, for me, no, because I think I was at a pretty good weight at the time. So I had no issues with blood pressure, and even up till now, I have no issues with blood pressure. I got a blood pressure monitor just to check my pressure out of curiosity, not out of concern,
Uh,
every month or so, and it's been fine. Every time I go to the doctor, they take it, and it's fine. So I didn't have to go through any of that, but I have heard of people also having to lose weight or manage some of that.
So this is what I want to know. How do you? Because I've never heard anybody say that they went and found somebody to
Yeah.
donate to. How does that process happen? Like, how do you decide that person is that you're gonna go get tested for? Like, do you just like get like 10 people and just do research on them, or do you just pick the very first one? How
No,
does that process work? Because
yeah,
that's the
that's a very
first I've ever heard of that.
tricky issue, right? Because you you have you're going to be doing this for somebody, and um, there's an overwhelming need for kidneys. Um, and even though on the transplant list, I think there's like 130,000 people waiting for an organ, but the people who are actually have kidney disease is much higher because a lot of those people are on dialysis, but they haven't been approved for transplants. And so for me, I just went on social media and found someone, and that was kind of like the first person, and I just stuck to that decision. I had reached out to a couple of people prior, but I think that a lot of times hospitals will only do one person testing at a time. And so there
Mm.
is a gentleman as well who somebody was testing for him, and it was very fortunate that he was able to get that kidney. Um, and so when I found this woman, I just called her up and said, "Hey, I want to test for you." Again, knowing what I know now, I would have done going through this transplant center directly. Uh, but at the time, I didn't know any better. So that's how I approached it. And again, it ended up I ended up being a match, and it ended up working out very well. So I have no regrets about that. But if I would give anybody advice, it's just contact a transplant center because they'll do all the matching for you and sort of relieve you of
I have
that
no
stress.
problem.
Yeah,
I have no problem with the way that you went. I mean, you took a step that a lot of people don't take in general.
yeah,
So I commend you on that 100% because like as far as I said, we're just trying to get people to sign up to give them out
right.
when they when they pass away, and you took the step to do it before you pass away. To say, here,
Yeah,
I'm gonna go save someone's life while I'm still here. So definitely my hat goes off to you on that, Miss Cook.
Yeah, like I said, that is phenomenal right there. How what was her reaction? You said it was a lady. I don't know her name or nothing, but what was her reaction? All of a sudden, somebody off social media calls her and say, "Hey, I want to give you the gift of life." So, what was
yeah.
that
I
about?
think initially I think she was overcautious because I think she had had other people with maybe not great intentions calling her. Um, but after I said, hey, I'm just here. If you don't want me to test for you, that's fine. If you do, I'm more than welcome to. So I actually had to fly out to the hospital in California, and I did the testing. um, and once I was approved, she was very grateful. She started crying on the phone, and I was like, hey, don't worry about it. Like, I'm not like, I'm not gonna pull the rug from under you. Like, I'm very committed to this, and I'm gonna do this. um, so I think she was very grateful, but I know that there are a lot of people out there also with not great intentions who may take advantage of people in vulnerable situations. So I definitely understood her being a little bit cautious when I first reached out to her.
Right, especially from somebody coming, clear across, the country and everything to
Right.
give her the life, give this gift of life and everything. So I'm pretty sure she was apprehensive a little bit, but I'm
Of course.
glad you reassured her, because that's
Yeah.
one of the biggest things right there. My kidney swab, it was six of us, and it all
Wow.
started. Yeah, it all started because a gentleman named Luke from Denver, I might ask, and he wanted to just be a giver. He wanted to give his kidney. So
Okay.
he started the chain like that, and that's how we got ours and everything. But and it was wonderful. We it's crazy. We were like for the first 5 years, we were all going to DC, meeting each other, and and always keeping in touch with each other. But slowly, 15 years ago, that was 15 years ago. Some of us have died. I mean, some of them have died. I haven't, but some kidneys aren't functioning and everything. But we still
Yeah.
keep in contact. But it's still a great thing. That's why just wanted to say that. So
Yeah.
another thing is, how do people react when they see you being a advocate for being an organ donor and can put a face with it also, because a lot of times people hear about it, but when they can put a face with it, how what's their
Yeah.
response?
Well, before I say that, I was actually, I picked up my phone because I met a gentleman a couple of years ago who had donated a kidney named Luke here in Denver. So I don't know if it's the same. Look, I go to these events for like living kidney donors.
He's an airplane pilot. I haven't talked to him in a while, but
Okay, I have to go back and look.
he gave his
So
kidney at John Hopkins University. So just check that out. I
yeah,
gave you some more information.
yeah, I think I met him through the American Transplant Foundation. So I'll have to go back and look. But um, yeah, that would be really interesting. What a small world.
Yeah,
But yeah,
yeah.
the how people react. I can't tell what's going through their head, but a lot of people are just kind of like, "Oh, that's amazing," or "That's great that you did that. I could never do that." Um, And for me, on the one hand, it's a little bit awkward. I mean, I try to be open about it because I think that it's good for people to know that it's something that you can do. Um, and I try to be open about it, but a lot of times for me, it's like I don't want people to think of me as a hero, and I'm even comprehensive about using that word. For me, and I say this, and it's not hyperbole, that I have a harder time choosing what to have for dinner sometimes than my decision to donate a kidney, right? Because for me, it was
Okay.
so easy that it's like, yeah, it's, but I did a lot of research and I was very well informed. And I asked a lot of questions to the transplant surgeon and also to the nephrologist and also to my coordinator. Um, but people, a lot of times, their reaction is, I couldn't do that. And to be honest, I think um, everybody should try to do that, right? And obviously, not everybody's going to be qualified because there are certain medical um, uh, points that you have to meet.
Right.
But I think that I encourage people to, if they want to do that, to start the process, and then they can decide throughout it. But for me, I think that it's just admiration. But I would much rather them not have admiration and say something like, I couldn't do that, and instead be like, oh, I would like to do that as well, you
Right.
know?
Right.
Um, so, yeah.
So,
Um,
kind of going back, reactions. What was your family's reaction when you told them, "Hey, I tested to be a donor. I'm approved." What did they say?
Yeah, that's hard, right? Because your family has your best interest in mind, so everything that they say comes from loving you. And my mother specifically was very not in favor of it initially, but after I reassured her, hey, like, I'm gonna go through with this, and this is the reasons why. And then once the surgery happens and they see that you're living your best life after that, it's never come up in conversation ever again.
Right.
Um, at the time, yeah, and I understand that because it is a a big decision, even though for me, like I said, I thought it as just a very natural thing to do. But yeah, there's definitely resistance, and especially if you're donating to somebody who's not related to you, right? If you're
Exactly.
donating to your parent or to your child or to a sibling, spouse, it's very different. But when you're donating to somebody who you haven't even met, I think that there is you're going to experience a lot more resistance. For me, luckily, I think that once my mother knew that I was going to do it, that turned from resistance to, okay, I'm going to be here for whatever it is that you need. And then after that, you know, my life hasn't really changed in any way, so it's never even come up again.
That's awesome, man. I think God gives us two kidneys to share if we need them.
Right. Are your spare?
Right. Um, Phil, do you have another question?
No, no. I got
Okay.
questions, but go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. So that's coming from social media, and all of a sudden, you tell this lady you want a kidney. I wonder, and I'm wondering, I'm asking you, what were the chances of you guys being a match? Because there's people that line up and aren't matches at all.
Oh, yeah, that's yeah. It's so specifically when I was searching for somebody who was my blood type. So I knew what
Okay,
my blood type was because I had been a blood donor,
okay,
and so I knew that I was O positive.
hmm
So when I was searching for living kidney donor O positive, and so I knew that we were going to have that in common. But then there is what's called antigens that they also have to do a test
yes,
for, and I don't really know all the science behind it, but I don't know how many there are, but I think we had three in common, which I
yeah.
think was like a good match. So
Right, right. You had the three main ones in common. I'm pretty well versed in antigens, if you
yeah,
so I understand what you're saying. So, and that
yeah,
was just by the chance right there. Even though the blood types were right, the antigens were right, so
right,
it was good to go, and that's awesome, man.
right.
How often do you talk to her?
I talk to her probably once a month.
Okay, cool.
Sometimes more often, sometimes less often. It just kind of depends. Obviously, I think that we talk more around the time of the donation. Every year in August 20th, definitely around Thanksgiving, Christmas, my birthday, her birthday. I actually talked to her a few days ago because I hadn't
Okay,
talked to her
cool.
in a while, so I just called her to see how she was doing.
Awesome,
So
awesome.
yeah, yeah,
So my next question, just to kind of step off of the donation side of things, um, what made you decide to stay in Denver all the way through school? So you've been through multiple stages of education
yeah.
after high school. What made you decide, especially with law school, with so many law schools being around the country, so many great ones being around the country? What made
Sure.
you decide to pick that one and stay home?
A few things. So I'm originally from Mexico. I moved to the States when I was 10, and I moved to Littleton, Colorado. And I've lived Littleton is a suburb of Denver. Um, and I moved here in 98. And I've always just really liked it. I liked sort of the outdoors, the fact that it has a big city. It's like a mid city, so it's got a lot of the things that big cities have, but it's not as massive. Um, Nice places to go skiing, even though I'm trying to learn to ski still. But a lot of outdoor opportunities, a good balance of suburban life and cosmopolitan life. Um, and all of my good friends from college, because I went to college here, are still here. And I just don't like moving. I hate having to move. I think that if I was going to make a move, I would much rather move, like to Japan. If I'm going to go through the trouble of doing that, I'd much rather do that than go to another place, because I knew that I wanted to practice law in Colorado. And so I chose to go to the University of Denver Strom College of Law because they have a part-time program, and I didn't have to move places. I didn't have to do any of that. I can continue to stay in my job. And because I wanted to stay here, it allowed me to network uh, within the legal community that I was going to be in once I graduated, as opposed to trying to do that from out of state and then coming here. And they're good law schools, and I really enjoyed my time at the University of Colorado. That was in Boulder. Um, so yeah, I this is home, and this is where I'm going to stay. I may take some time to maybe spend some time somewhere else, maybe abroad. Uh, but I think that ultimately this is where I want to make home.
I can understand that decision. I'll keep up with watching Coach Prime on YouTube a lot, and just seeing the places that he goes to in Boulder. It's like it just looks like a completely different world than being
Yeah,
in somewhere like out here in California and Florida or Atlanta or
yeah,
somewhere like that. It honestly looks very peaceful out there. I have a cousin that
yeah,
lives in Denver. He was
yeah.
in the army, and
Oh, it's great.
you know he stayed. He's like, man, I'm not leaving. He's like, I'm staying right
Yeah,
here. I was like, I
yeah,
don't blame you, sir. I mean, I would rather him stay out there, no matter where he was, rather than come back home. Just the area that we lived in wasn't necessarily the best, but for him and who he was, staying out there was definitely the right move for him. But go ahead, Mr. Cook.
yeah.
I was
No,
gonna
I
say,
love.
I was gonna say, you ready to take a commercial break?
Yeah, we can.
Okay.
1 second.
Yeah, starting back, my other
Welcome back
question
to a
right here
second
was,
chance.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you
Apologize,
good.
sir.
It's good.
I was going to ask
No, you good.
what kind of questions what kind of questions do you receive from people once they know you are a kidney donor?
The question that's most often asked is if I had to change my life in any way, if I have, rather, if I have any restrictions. And
Mhm.
the answer is always no. Um, I've spoken at I've spoken a couple of times at university classes a while ago, and people will ask me if I can drink, and the answer is yes. But I don't drink, but that's not because of the kidney. I just it doesn't get alcohol doesn't get me any closer to that kind of person that I want to be.
Right.
So, and it's not like 100%. Maybe on average a year I will have like 2 beers. Like it's very very little. So I
Right.
just say that I don't drink. Same with diet. I just eat the same. Um, I don't drink soda. This is just sparkling water with no sugar because I don't like sugary drinks. So I think that I really have no restrictions, but um, overall, I think it's because I have pretty good habits when it comes to my lifestyle and the kind of things that I consume. The only thing is no NSAIDs, which is the anti-inflammatory drugs. So I take
Ibuprofen,
all of
things
them.
like that.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But that's like it's not something that affects me on a daily life, right? So it's
Right.
just switching from one kind of pain medication to another.
Mhm.
So
Go ahead, Phil.
I want to know, how did you go from majoring in arts and Japanese to law? Like, how does that
yeah,
transition
so
work?
originally I wanted to be a professor of Japanese literature, but after speaking to some of my professors, um, they weren't discouraging necessarily, but they said that it was really hard to get a job in that field, and even when you can get a job, it's really hard to make a living. Um, and what happened was that I was looking for a job. My friend was leaving a job at a law firm. They needed somebody to take like a paralegal position pretty fast. I went and I interviewed, and they offered me that job. And I stayed there for about 4 years. And then I went to work for another law firm as a paralegal in immigration law for another year or so, year and a half. And so I had experience in that, and I knew that I wanted to continue that. I don't know that I'm going to do immigration law when I graduate, but I kind of fell into legal work, and I'm glad I did because I really enjoy it. So, but I still continue to try to hone my Japanese skills using different apps, writing the kanji, that kind of stuff. I like to learn languages more as a intellectual exercise. So it, that major, even though I'm not doing anything with it, really enriched my life in other ways that I have no regrets when it comes to that.
Is your the recipient of your kidney, what's her life like now? Is she back to work? Is she functioning really
Oh
good,
yeah,
or what?
yeah. She's I think she works in coding, like
Okay.
computer science stuff. Um, so she had a daughter that's a college graduate now, and then after the donation, she had two other kids. So she has a daughter who's a college graduate, and then she has a couple of toddlers.
So she's
So
has kids after she had her kidney transplant, right?
yeah,
That's
yeah,
pretty awesome right there.
yeah. So it's 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 pretty great,
Uh,
I
yeah,
think,
that's
when it
cool
comes
right there.
to
Phil and I, we interviewed a lady. I believe it was either last week or the week before that had she had a kidney transplant and a baby also, and I had so many questions for her, and she was like, "Yeah, it went fine and everything." So that's good, man. This and
yeah,
one thing I do like about somebody like herself, she's going to be an advocate too, and those kids are going to know about being organ donors, and the
right,
chain the chain continues. People, these kids are going to be informed. There might be some little donor drive at their school, and you might hear a kid be like, "No, I wouldn't do that," and then another kid be like, "Well, my mom, she's a recipient," and they correct that
yeah,
kid, and that's what I like. I like about keeping the chain of information
yeah,
going where. where people can, so we can still build momentum, because sometimes in some of these communities, especially, I'll just keep it real, the Black community, we have momentum in there where it's non-avoided. I've been at churches and different ones, and they have so many myths. Oh, you can't this religion, and I'm like, no, it's not true. Well, what happens if my other kidney goes out? It's highly unlikely that your kidney is going to go out. And
Yeah.
people put up all these roadblocks that we hear, and I believe if we start at the young age and plant the seed in the young kids and let them know, especially her toddlers, she go, hey, I have a kidney transplant. I had you guys with it. They're gonna be like, what? Okay, so that's pretty remarkable to me, man. That's
Yeah.
I love hearing about this. Things like
Yeah, and I find this in the Hispanic community and in the general population as well. But there's a lot of misconceptions. Like one of the things I hear, I did a TEDx talk, and some of the comments will say like, "Don't register to be a donor because if you go into the ER, they're not going to save you." And I think it just shows a misunderstanding of how the medical system works when it comes. It's not like every doctor is not a transplant surgeon,
that.
right?
Right.
Like it's those surgeries are so specialized
Mm-hmm.
that like the idea that a general practitioner at an ER or somewhere else is going to be able to do that, it's that's not the way that it works. Um, so yeah.
Yeah, but how do we break these myths? Because we have these myths, and Phil can contest to these things. He's heard them as well. Um, how do we break these myths? Because it seems like once the myth starts, it spreads like wildfire. And trying to put that fire out is a challenge.
I think that what people need is making a personal connection with somebody who has been through the process, whether it's a living donor or whether it's a recipient, um, because then that creates a direct connection to that experience as opposed to hearing about it through online forums, through things like that. And I think that there is something about like people who get bad experiences from like customer service are more likely to write reviews, right? So in the
Yep.
same way, I think that people remember the negative experiences more. And so being able to talk about those positive experiences is really good, right? Like what the transplant has done for your life,
Right.
or what I've been able to do as a living donor post transplant. Um, for me, or people say like, "Oh, I'm not healthy, so I can't donate." It's like you don't make that decision without consulting first, or
Right.
anybody can register to be an organ donor on your license. But if you want to be a
Right.
living donor, you can start the process, and then you can see, you can have conversations with people who are nephrologists, transplant surgeons, coordinators that are going to be able to answer those questions. But when it comes to the myths, I think it's just specifically where you encounter them, counter that with your experience followed by the proper information, right? Same with me, where people say like, "Oh, I don't want to donate because then they think that they're going to donate and they're not going to be able to run." I have friends who are ultra marathon runners who are living kidney donors. I have friends who are Ironmen, friends who are bodybuilders, CrossFit athletes, right? I'm very well connected within a transplant community of people who are also active. And I myself do. I don't like to call it bodybuilding, but I love to weightlift. And so I have a picture on my Instagram of what I looked like on the day of donation and what I look like now. And I'm in way better shape than I was then when I had two kidneys. And I continue to be in way better shape than the general population. So people, if you just look at me, people wouldn't be able to tell that I only have one kidney,
Right.
right?
Have
And
you
so
have you noticed yourself being more health conscious after you gave the kidney?
not I've seen myself be more health conscious, but I think it's more out of concern as I age.
I
You
got
know,
you. Yeah. Yeah. That's
like
real. That's
um, I was weightlifting in my 20s, and then life gets in the way and you lose your good habits and then all that kind of stuff. But then
right. Right.
a couple of years ago, I really, settled down. I was like, okay, now that I'm in my 30s, I'm 34 now. I'm going to be 35 in September. how do I want my life to look like in my 30s and going on into and so I age. And so yeah, I made changes when it comes to my exercise, what I eat. I track the food that I eat on a app called MyFitnessPal, but
Hmm.
that's not necessarily because of the kidney. It's more my overall concern
I got you.
with
You're just
all of my
overall wellness.
yeah, exactly.
Gotcha.
And
Mm.
my sleep, all those kind of things that a lot of people don't consider. It's not just the exercise and the eating, but also the way that you sleep, how you manage stress, all that kind
Yep.
of stuff. Yeah.
Go ahead, Phil.
So let's go back a few steps. You mentioned your TEDx talk. Uh,
Yeah.
what drove you to doing that, and what did you actually speak about?
I spoke about the kidney donation. So I think that the title is should everybody be a living kidney donor? And my message was yes, everybody should be a living kidney donor, and here's why. Right? I think that oftentimes when it comes as somebody who's very much into personal development and wellness and trying to do my best, we there is this whole culture of like, you can do anything if you work hard enough or put your mind to it, which I think that part of that is true, right? I think that it's very mental. We can get into these um situations where we put limiting beliefs in ourselves, but there are things that just cannot go away with positive thinking or hard work. And one of them is need a kidney. No, if you are in need of a kidney and you are, and that's on your mind 24/7, you know, you can't, it's not like training for a marathon where you can achieve it by working hard,
Right.
right? It depends on the goodwill of other people to get to that. And so for me, that was something that I wanted to bring across, that it's not always about hard work, but it's also about the community. And, there is a statue very famous called the self-made man, and it's like a guy who's very muscular, like digging himself out of a like carving himself out of a rock. And I like that, but also it's like, well, I don't know that everybody's self-made, because we rely on so many other people to be able to for us to do our work, right? um and yeah, so that was what it was about. It's about not only not losing sight of, you can work really hard, but also realize that there are some things that you're not going to be able to do no matter how hard you work.
I agree with that. We hear people holler, "I'm self-made millionaire. I'm self-made," but if you look down the road, somewhere, somehow, you had an opportunity that somebody gave you.
Right.
Somebody did something. Don't get me wrong. You put the work in to be a
Right.
to be a millionaire. I'm not questioning that, but there were opportunities, and I say bread seeds laying around, and you
Right.
you took those opportunities
Right.
and you created something beautiful from it. So
Right.
I agree with you on that for sure. That we be careful when you say self-made, because when you start looking deep into your path, you see how the people raised you up and helped you in all kinds of
Right.
small ways that steered you into your direction. Because I believe in
Correct.
the understanding of putting in the work and stuff, and then the universe will help you as well. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's you have to make use of those opportunities, right?
Right.
So
Right.
it's not necessarily an excuse to be passive, but those opportunities have to come along. Like, I've had so many people in my life that were so gracious with me, that helped me
Hmm.
through
Hmm.
college, either financially or
Yes.
getting me connected with people or attorneys or whatever it is that I needed, right? Um, that I owe a lot of. I'm very grateful for those opportunities.
Hmm. I agree with you, man, and that's why when we hear people say the self-made thing, if you look back at your life, you'd be surprised that there was somebody that gave you that helping hand somewhere
Right.
that let you continue on with your journey. And
Yeah.
I do believe that. But that's wonderful. I'm glad that you mentioned that. Man, I don't have any more questions. This was a great interview. I love hearing you and talking to you. I looked at I don't even call it, like I said, a resume. I call that a curriculum vita for sure. I was like,
Oh,
okay, he
thank
got a
you.
curriculum vita. This man has done some stuff right here. And
Uh,
keep on doing great work. We appreciate
thank
you like
you.
this. And we thank you, to have a donor on our show to come on and talk about and seeing how healthy you are. You're still exercising, still lifting weights, and
Yeah, six
blood
days a week.
pressure's perfect, and none of these things are going on. So you are
Yeah.
the picture perfect person of what we call a donor, a living donor. So thank
Oh,
you so
thank you.
much for gracing our time with
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
So I have two last questions.
Yeah. Go ahead.
One, so you're the former co-chair of the Leadership Council. Did you jump into that position, or did you take some time to slowly get position right for that position?
Are you talking about after I donated, how long I waited, or
No, no, no.
um
On your resume, it said that
right,
you were the co-chair
right.
for
The
Transplant Leadership Council, right?
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
So
that
my question is, did you jump straight into that position? Like after, I'm assuming it was after your transplant when you
oh
got into
no,
that
I
position.
was
Did you
no,
get positioned to like work your way to that position, or did you do it?
no, I was part of, and I don't remember what the official that was several years ago, but I was part of more the wider group before I got into that leadership position, and I was the co-chair. What I really wanted to do was create more social events that were fun because I feel like a lot of times when we're talking transplant, it can feel very clinical, right? We're just
Mm,
talking about like the what it's like living with kidney disease as opposed to and celebrating what donation has been able to do for people. And so just more of a social and that was my goal, more of a social environment where we can just have fun and have conversations and not feel like it's a doctor's appointment. Um, so yeah. So no, I was part of the wider group before that.
okay. Um. So my last thing is
Yeah.
to take 2 or 3 minutes and what would you tell somebody that approaches you in person or on social media and says, "Hey, I'm thinking about becoming a living donor. What can you tell me about the process? How did it go for you?" What do you tell that person?
Yeah. Sure. So what I would tell them first is reach out to a transplant center, talk to a transplant coordinator, ask about what the process is specifically for that. There's federal law that sort of dictates what the points that every transplant has to go through. But I think that they do it a little bit differently as far as the sequence of events. Um, do that. Make a list of all the possible questions that you have. I can tell you about my experience. I had a really positive experience. I have no regrets. I think it's enriched my life, not only knowing that this person is able to live a great life and have children afterwards, but also the people that I met through a transplant community, right? Like I said, I have friends who are triathletes, ultra marathon runners, and that are very passionate about this. So that's I would tell my experience, but also let them know that they should talk and have those questions with that person. And then the other thing that I would do is make a list of hobbies or things that you want to do that don't require you to be active because for 8 weeks or maybe 6 weeks or however long you're gonna have to you're not gonna be able to lift heavy weights or anything like that. And because that just requires a lot of patience afterwards. But that 6 weeks of discomfort that you're gonna go through is nothing in comparison for what the other person gets, right?
Right.
So, maybe if you want to get through some video games or movies or things like that, plan on that as opposed to going on hikes or skiing for that. And it's not that much. We're already 8 weeks, no, maybe like 5 weeks into the year. So, and the beginning of the year wasn't that long ago. So, uh, that's the advice that I would give them.
Awesome, awesome. Well, again, like Paul said, we appreciate you being on our show today.
Absolutely. Thank
Awesome,
you.
awesome story. Definitely appreciate you taking the time to speak with us and give your story to the people. Next week we have Shirley Brill of EMAT on with us, which I'm definitely looking forward to as well. And we have March 9th, 2023, our World Kidney Days webinar with Dr. Shrika
Nice.
Brookins and Lana Carroll. So definitely you ready to be tuned in for that. It's going to be something special. That is
Yeah.
sponsored by Trio International. So thank you, Trio, for that sponsorship. We appreciate you. And we'll see you all next week. Again, Jose, thank you very much. We appreciate you.
Thank you. I appreciate your time. You all take care.
All right, man. Thank you so much. We appreciate you.
Bye bye.